Okay, good afternoon everybody and welcome back to the channel. Well, the days keep fluctuating out here from decent to not decent for solar charging, but that's just this time of year. There's a little blue sky trying to peek through. We are charging, so, and keeping up with everything, so can't ask for more than that. Not the greatest of conditions, but starting to over panel everything accordingly. So all in all, pretty good. So it's been about a year since we first reviewed this AmpereTime 12V 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. We've tested it in many various applications over the past year. It's worked well. It's never let us down in any capacity that we've used it in, and we've stayed within its specifications. Works perfectly, has great name reputation. A lot of you are using AmpereTime in your system. I've seen a lot of pictures of your systems that some of you have shared with me, and you're all loving this battery too. But now there's a change with AmpereTime, and here it is. They are changing their name to LiTime, and this is their Smart Edition 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery, OTCB, as you can see. And OTCB stands for One Touch Control Button, which if you see between those two terminals, there is now a button with an LED light indicator inside of there to give you some extra functions that are not available in their normal 100 amp hour battery. And I have to say, there are quite a few good applications for that one button, and we're going to go over that here. And all of the battery parameters are the same. Prismatic cells, nominal capacity 100 amp hours, usable capacity 100 amp hours, nominal voltage 12.8 volts, energy 1280 watt hours. The BMS on board, the same 100 amp BMS, a max continuous charge or discharge of 100 amps, a max discharge current for 5 seconds of 300 amps to 500 amps, and your max continuous load power 1280 watts. And low temperature charging protection 32 degrees Fahrenheit, low temperature charging protection recovery 41 degrees Fahrenheit. And one of the features of that button, and I'm going to show you these, is a low temperature forced charging. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. And this battery came with a nice Ziploc pouch. And inside that pouch was, of course, your product manual, which is very thorough, very easy to understand. I would read it from cover to cover, give you a lot of information that you'd need. A little card to share your experiences with them if you choose to, and how to do that. They'd love to hear from you. Of course, there's a package with the M8 terminal bolts and a couple of terminal caps, which we'll open up here in a minute. And a quick start guide, 5-year warranty, and then just a little more information on the transition that they're doing from AmpereTime. And it says from AmpereTime has been transitioning into LiTime in the North American market. And you can read through all of this. It's a very nice little packet of information for everything you'll need to know about how to get this battery up and started for you. So let's check it out now with the button. So like most batteries like this nowadays, it did come with those terminal thread protectors right there. It came with 2 sets of the M8 terminal bolts, and then a positive and a negative terminal bolt cover that just fits snugly on top of the bolt once you would get your cables tied on there and have it ready to be tied into place. Got the multimeter on it reading 3.256 volts. And the battery is off. So now let's long press this. And you can see the LED indicator light is now green. The battery is now on. This battery is at rest and has been at rest since its arrival, and that's what it arrived with, 13.23 volts. And it has held that until this testing. So there it is, the battery's on, ready for charging or discharging. A longer press, goes red and then turns off, and the battery is now off. And that means it cannot be discharged. So I really like that function, because if you had this tied into something, or whatever you had it tied into, you don't necessarily have to be having any phantom loads hit your battery throughout the night. You could turn that battery off, and a little phantom load on like a TV or some other electrical appliances that do draw a little bit of power while you're sleeping. If there's no reason to keep that on, there's no reason to have the battery discharging, so you can quickly turn it off. So while this battery is in the on position, in the normal position, normal and standby for charging and discharging, if this was to be flashing green, it means you have a low capacity, and it will stop flashing when the state of charge gets greater than 25%. So once you drop down below 25% of your capacity in here, it will start to flash green. So if you're not tied into solar, it's indicating to you that it will need a charge. That's very, very handy. You'll see that flashing green, time to plug in your charger. If you're hooked up to solar, it's probably not going to be an issue. You will just, keep it up to above 25% to keep that from flashing green. I like that indicator. Flashing green means you need to get it charged up a little higher. So right there, on and good. And I'll try and keep my finger out of the way enough so you can see. There, and so you just a little bit of a long press. Now it's completely off. A little bit of a long press. It's on, ready for action. And now if that red light was always on, it means that you have an abnormal cell voltage, or it could possibly mean that the battery is at the end of its normal life, and the battery will stop charging and discharging. A red flashing light would mean a BMS failure, and that could be for battery over discharge or battery over current. So, and then you would just wait for 30 seconds, switch from charging to discharging, or from discharging to charging to reset that BMS if that's what failed. So these are pretty nice little smart features, and they really are smart. Now, here's one that won't really apply to us out here, but it's for an emergency situation to be able to charge this up when there's not much in the way of warmth in that battery. And one more thing I'll point out is if this was flashing orange, it could be indicating the end of the battery life. If you've had more than 5,000 discharge cycles or more than 12 years cumulative operating time, depending how you were using it, if you were working it hard with lots of 100% depths of discharge. If you're working with a lot less depth of discharge, this thing is boasting the possibility of 15,000 cycles. So that would be a lot more years. So out here we try to cycle these batteries no lower than the 20%, basically from 80% to 20% is what we shoot for to get the maximum life out of these batteries. We've been able to do that so far. So after the orange light starts flashing for the first time, it can still be charged or discharged normally for 1 year and then stopped after 1 year. So once you would get a flashing orange light, that's telling you that it's going to be getting to the end of its life, as opposed to the flashing red light, which means the BMS activated and cut off for overcharging, over discharging, something along those lines. And it shows you in the brochure how you would want to reset that. Very simple as well. This does have low temperature charging protection, so when the battery temperature is lower than 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the BMS will disconnect the battery to protect the battery. The LED indicator is a solid orange light when that has happened. So if you're down below 32 degrees, that BMS is going to kick on to protect it. And what there is on this, which is kind of neat, it won't really apply for people in warmer climates, but if you're in a colder climate, you can override that low temperature charging protection for an emergency type of a use. So enabling this function will cancel the low temperature charging protection and force the battery to be charged. They say it's not recommended in non-special cases. So, unless it was a real special instance where you wanted to override the low temperature protection, you don't do it. But if you had to, and it was an emergency situation, for example, you wake up in your van or wherever you are, the temperature is below 32 degrees, and I don't know, something that you absolutely have to have turned on, like a CPAP machine or something else that you guys may need, or any type of an emergency situation, whether even for some communications, you can override that and charge it up for a period of time to get a little bit of a charge to deal with your emergency. Now that is pretty cool. So when the battery is protected by low temperature charging protection, the LED indicator will be orange. And so you would short press the button and then short press the button again within 5 seconds when the LED indicator turns green and always on. And then the battery can start charging. And then when the battery was to reach a temperature higher than 41 degrees Fahrenheit, the BMS would be deactivated from its cutoff, and you could restart the battery. And the low temperature charging protection function will be restored by default. Now, because forcing charging when the battery temperature is lower than 5 degrees Fahrenheit will damage the battery, the low temperature forced charging function will not be enabled when the battery temperature is lower than 5 degrees. But so that gives you a little bit of a playroom with that. From 32 degrees Fahrenheit down to 5 degrees in an emergency situation, you could override that BMS cutoff for charging and charge it up. Whether you needed some oxygen or some communication, those are the things that just come to my mind. You guys might have a lot of other things you could use that for in a forced situation. Not recommended, but could be very, very important to have. So, a few different functions on this makes this, a more versatile battery, in my opinion. There we go. Turn it back off. Yeah, so, I've reviewed a lot of these 100 amp hour batteries, and, they're all basically the same components, same BMS, same cells, same type of life cycles. Everything seems the same. And then this one comes along and adds some features that are well worth taking a look at. So, the smart version is, I'll just say, basically $100 more than what you could get a version without these functions. And depending on what you would want to be using this for, I could see this being worth an extra $100 for sure. Out here, the low temperature protection is not something that we need, but where the rest of you guys are, and as I see the weather changing quickly on the mainland, the low temperature protection is great. So, yeah, AmpereTime, changing for the North American market to lead time. We're going to put a lot of different tests on this. I'm not going to be able to do that low temperature override because we simply don't get that cold here, and I'm not going to put this in the freezer to do it. So yeah, first look, there it is. LiTime 12V 100Ah lithium iron phosphate smart version. A lot of different functions. Out here, what I like about it would be to just that on-off switch for simply shutting off your phantom loads. Sometimes those really can affect what your state of charge is in the morning, all things that you could consider. I've dealt with AmpereTime for about a year now. They have great customer service, very responsive, back up their products with a great warranty, and they have the name recognition, and now they're going to be recognized by a different name. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think, and if any of you grab this battery, let me know how it's working out for you. And we'll show you a lot more coming up in some various uses. We will work it out. Aloha, everybody.